Today, we are going to make some grass. No, I'm not in Colorado, so it's not going to be that kind of grass. It's our techniques that are so simple and sensible, your mowers will practically build themselves. Hello folks, it's Mad Dog Merv. Today, well, we've got one of my favorite passenger trains that we're going to talk about a little bit and look at kind of the updates that I've done to the layout. This is our kind of our August update for our August train. And I thought for August, well, originally I wasn't sure what I was going to do. But in the last few months, I really have come to fall in love with this absolutely beautiful paint scheme. And found out that, well, just a few weeks ago in July, that it's the 70th anniversary of the starting, or the when this train started to run. It wasn't around for a whole lot of years, but the scenery that it took in was absolutely stunning. And I'm talking about the Southern Pacific's Daylight trains, and I'm talking specifically about the Shasta Daylight. Now, the Shasta Daylight started in 1949. It was actually July 10th of 1949 it started to run. And it went from Portland, Oregon down to Oakland, California. And it had an amazing 15-hour and 30-minute runtime. So this thing would run past Mount Shasta and through some of the most beautiful wooded country in the country. And having traveled some of that area in the past few years, well, I can tell you, yeah, this must have been absolutely spectacular. But to see this beautiful train coming, well, we're going to kind of talk about it, and we're going to show you what we've got here on the layout. And so stick around, and we'll talk about the Shasta Daylight. So here's an advertisement for the Shasta Daylight. It was the third of the Daylight streamliners that Southern Pacific put out, and it was their first diesel Daylight. It started service on July 10th of 1949, and it was in continuous service until 1965. So I really have fallen in love with this Daylight scheme. And 4449 is one of my favorite steam locomotives. And I thought it would be fun to build a Daylight train, one of the Coast Daylights. But then I found out about this particular train and the beautiful diesels that pulled it. So I decided this is the route I was going to go. So this train is actually part Shasta Daylight and part Coast Daylight, but it's a good representation of a Daylight. So I am going to purchase a few cars from like eBay or wherever I can get them that are already painted, but I have some others that are just kind of left over from some other projects that I'm going to go ahead and paint up. And these two here were going to be part of the Freedom Train at one time, but there's a combine and there is a baggage car that'll be perfect on this Daylight. So I go ahead and prime them in my 2X primer from Krylon. And then I'm going to use Floquill's Railroad colors. Yes, I still have some of these. One is the UP Light Orange, which I'm going to darken up with a little bit of red. And there is this SP Scarlet, which is perfect. I have a couple of bottles of this. So these are the colors I'm going to use, and I always cut them with lacquer thinner, believe it or not. I don't have any of the diasol thinner anymore. And, well, lacquer thinner always seems to do a really good job for me. So here it is. It's painted in the first few coats of the SP Scarlet, and paint goes on very well. It's a flat color, so keep that in mind. But I've kind of painted all of the sides, and I went ahead and painted the ends on this particular one. And then I'm going to mask it off, and I used just some blue painter's tape for masking on this. And then I went ahead and sprayed my UP Light Orange with a little bit of a SP Scarlet mix in it, and actually matched it up pretty close to the SP Orange that I need. You'll see the results and you can judge for yourself. Anyway, so here's the second car, and now I've masked off all of that area and I'm going to spray the top with the Mission Models Primer Black, and that's what I always use. And you can see the one car here is already finished and painted. And then what I have to do is, after all of this is done, I have to go back and pinstripe between each one of these levels with just a little bit of silver. And so I'll probably mask that off and do the silver. For the silver, I'm just going to use the tiny bottle of Testors Silver, and I'm going to use a fine brush and do it the best I can. I'm probably going to use a little bit of the Tamiya masking tape to get a nice crisp edge, but you can see the results here. It doesn't look too bad. Then I'm going to have to order up some decals, which I have here. They're just some Southern Pacific passenger car daylight decals. Now, looking at it, incomplete. I have a few cars done, but I have an observation car that I've painted up on the end that is good for one of the coast daylights, but really is not appropriate for the Shasta daylight. That one should be a corrugated side. I've been diligently working on all the cars I need and getting them from eBay and whatnot, and here you go. Here's kind of an overall shot of the entire consist. So the engines I'm using are from Athearn, and we have a PA1 and a PB1 and another PA1 dummy behind for the power. And here's an RPO that I purchased off of eBay. Looks really nice. And then the baggage car that I painted up, and the Combine I painted up. A couple of passenger cars, a couple of dome liners. And look pretty good. And then of course our tail end Charlie here. For the Shasta daylight, they should all be smooth side cars except for the observation car should be corrugated. And I have one, I just need to finish painting it up. But here it is with the backdrop, and I think it looks pretty darn cool. One last run by from a little bit different angle on the layout here. And yeah, man, I can imagine what that would have been like to watch back in the early 50s. Now let's take a look at the updates we've made to the layout this last month. So starting with the area where my main line and my spur line meet up and the beginning of the yard, well, I've made some changes here. I've added another switch, and I've tried to make this now kind of a area where there's a crossover. As you can see, I've built a little road, and the idea is coming from way off in the distance, there's a road that comes in about where my paint brushes are here. The road comes in, it crosses the main line and goes over to the spur line, crosses that, and then crosses one of the other branches that I have. And it's actually working out pretty well. I think it has a good flow, and it starts to send everything down towards the train table and the main area that you'll see here in a minute. So as we start going down the line, thought I'd mention I've been making a few, have probably 10 pine trees that I've been practicing trying to make, and I've got it here against the wall. They do look pretty good with the daylight going by. Also tried my hand at making a few other trees and putting them right up here against the backdrop, and with what's already painted there, hopefully kind of gives that, mountain scenery in the back. You can see my spur line, you can see my my switches to my other lines that are here, and the road. So I think it's looking pretty good. Got it all decorated up with that Utah sand, as I call it, but I still have grasses I need to put in. I still have shrubbery I need to put in. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done there. Now, as we turn just a little bit slightly here, as the train table meets the board, whatever you want to call it, here is a little styrofoam piece that I had to cut and shape and put in as the parking lot for the entryway that I have, in the upper entryway, as I call it, for the park on the train table. So I threw a couple of trees on here. I think that turned out pretty good in that little parking area. And then I've built these trees and added this little segment just off to the side. There's about a 2-inch drop off between the shelf and the train table. And so what this is it gives me an opportunity to kind of put some landscaping in there and kind of a barrier between my upper level and my lower level. So this little station down on the spur line on the shelf, the idea behind it is that a train could load passengers here, go all the way around, and show up on the train table. There's a little. I'm going to build a little station up there as well. So let's look at this little stop right here, shall we? First off, in the foreground of this picture, there's a phone booth, which is kind of fun. But when I originally did this, I did it as a dirt parking lot. I just threw some cars in there to kind of see what it would look like, and I decided to go ahead and pave it. But there's this little stand, kind of an open air stand, that you can go to and get your tickets. There's a little ticket box there. There's somebody inside the little ticket booth. There's even a U.S. mail box right there if you have something to mail. And here it is with the paving. And the idea was you could go here and you could purchase your ticket, see what the route said, all that kind of stuff, and go over to the little station, just a little platform area that I've got, and wait for your little train. Not really a commuter train, what I thought was more like something like the Durango and Silverton. Now you have a kind of little specialty train. Anyway, and here's the passengers waiting for that. One of the other things you can see here is on kind of another level up here in the corner, I've got this little old haunted house, and I put a garage on it. The garage actually faces the back. You have to come in through the back. A great big old oak tree there that I've put together for it, and the fence around this house. This will be fun during Halloween. But I also put a lot of pine trees and some other scenery on this corner piece that used to just be completely nothing at all.